Hello everybody and welcome to Learning Vintage Story with me, Honorable Fool. Now when you start in your world, you saw in the last episode we went over world settings a lot, but when you spawn in your world, you'll spawn in the wilderness. First things first, what do you need to get started? When you start in a world, first few things you're going to want to look for is flint, which this is what it will look like. Sometimes the rock will look a little different color depending on the biome you're in. You could just right click these to pick them up. Same goes for any other stones you see on the ground. You're going to want to look for sticks. Now to get sticks, you can find them on the ground in forest. You can also find leaves and the extra branchy leaves. You can see on the top of the screen it says birch branchy leaves. Those will drop more sticks than you will get from regular leaves. It's pretty rare to get them from regular leaves, but I do believe it can happen. That's a seed right there. You can just plant that on the ground. If you ever get any tree seeds, you just throw those on the ground. Another thing you want to look out for is clay. Now this is red clay. This is the most common clay you'll see. This is kind of what it looks like at the top, so you gotta keep your eye out a little bit. Now there is two other versions of clay. There's blue clay and fire clay. Fire clay will only spawn near coal deposits, and it will only spawn in bauxite biomes, while blue clay is just rare compared to red clay. Now clay usually spawns near water sources or hills or stuff, but it can spawn out here just in the middle of a field as well. Wild clay types, so of course we had red clay, which you just saw, blue clay, this is what it looks like, and fire clay. You're also going to want to look out for berry bushes for early game food. Now, once you got some flint and some sticks, first thing you probably want to do is to nap it. Now to nap it, it even tells you the controls at the bottom of the screen. For me it's control right click, and you can see what you can make with flint. You can't make a lot with flint, you can only make arrowheads, an axe head, a hoe, a knife, a shovel, and a spear. I would suggest getting the knife first, that is probably the most important part, and then probably an axe. After that, I mean, get a shovel, get a spear. Don't really need the hoe this early on, or the arrowheads, unless you really got lucky and found a bow maybe. But we're going to start with the knife, and it's going to highlight these orange squares. Now you're going to need another piece of flint or a hard rock. There is soft rocks which you cannot use for napping, so I believe, like, for example, claystone is a soft rock, so you can't use it for this, but you can use granite. Now, these orange ones, you're going to want to just left click them with your rock in your hand. That will get rid of them. Now you don't have to do them each individually. If you just do the edge of where the tool blade is going to be, it will just delete the rest, just like that. So pretty simple process. It's the same for all the other flint stuff. And then once you finish it, it will drop and you'll get your flint knife blade. You just combine that here in a crafting bench just like that and get yourself a flint knife. In addition to flint tools can vary depending on the stone that you use. Now, for all the other hard stones, so granite, I believe basalt is one, you're going to get like a durability of 60 for example on the shovel, and you can see the mining speed for the different materials right there. Step up is the flint, so just pure flint. And finally, the best type of flint tier tool is the obsidian. If you find obsidian, could use it to make some tools that will last you a little bit longer and a little bit quicker, but it's not a huge deal, I would say. Don't even worry about that. So just use what you got. Now if you're ever looking for any recipes or anything, you can always click H to bring up the guidebook. And these have walkthroughs of some mechanics and stuff, as well as all these things you can see in the game. And it scrolls on for a while, so there is a search bar up here if you're looking for something specific. Now what do you do with the knife? Why do we need the knife? Well, another important resource is dry grass, which you can just use a knife on the grass, and you'll get dry grass. Pretty easy. Additionally, as of 1.22, you cannot pick up berry bushes anymore. You have to use a knife on them. You can control right click them, and you'll get a cutting. This cutting you can plant at your base, course, and we'll get into that once we get to the farming bits, but yeah, you just plant those. It takes about a year for berry bushes to grow. So it's not a very good food source. Basically just want to pick the berries, eat them if you really need to. Additionally, you may find cattails, or if you're in a jungle biome, papyrus. These are really important, so you can use a knife on them. Pick those up. As you can see, our inventory, we have no slots. So what you need to do is find a bunch of these, and just get a bunch of cattails. For example, I have a chest over here with some resources for the tutorial. Once you get some resources, you can put these a boat shape, I believe. Yep, in a boat shape, just like that. It's gonna take 10 reeds, the 2 in each slot, and you get a basket. What you do with this basket, you put it in one of these 4 slots down here. These are your inventory expansion slots. As you can see, the reed basket is 3 slots right here. It gives us 3 slots. The papyrus basket is exactly the same. Additionally, you can use the knife again on the roots right here, as you can see, and you'll get a cattail root. These can be moved, so you can pick them up and plant them at your base or whatever. I would suggest doing that. Alright, now that you got yourself some flint tools, for example, we have a flint axe here and a flint spear. You can use the flint spear to hunt little game. I would suggest not really messing with bears or wolves at this point, but you know, you can maybe hunt a few foxes or raccoons or anything like that. Of course, if you right click the spear, you could throw it. Just make sure you go back and pick it up, otherwise you'll lose that spear. And of course you can jab with it as well, just like with any other melee weapon. Now, let's say you killed some raccoons, you got some meat. Well, you need somewhere to cook it, right? Now, to cook it, you're gonna need to get some wood. Now, once you cut down a tree, you got yourself some logs. What you can do with these logs is you put them in your crafting with an axe, and you'll get firewood. As you can see, we already had some firewood. Now, let's say, for example, you had some meat on you. I don't have any on me right now, but let's say you did. You had some bush meat or red meat. What you do is you go to an empty block. It doesn't have to be stone. It can be grass. If you have fire spreader, be careful. Campfires will spread fire to nearby stuff. Go ahead and crouch and right click with the dry grass in your hand, and it's going to create this fire pit and construction thing. Then you're just going to take your firewood and you're just going to right click. Once you get 4 in there, you're going to make a fire pit. You can throw the rest of your fuel in there. Now, how do we start this fire pit, you ask? Well, you're going to need more dry grass, you're going to need some more sticks. Once you got that, you can actually click H on an item while you're hovering it to double check for recipes. So you can see the ingredients for it. We're going to make a fire starter. This requires 2 sticks and a piece of grass. Just like that. And once you have that, you can see it tells you what you can light it with, a torch or a fire starter. And you're going to have to crouch. It doesn't say to crouch, but if you just try right clicking, it's just going to open the fire pit. But you crouch, it might take a little bit with the fire starter, it might take longer. Got it pretty quick right there. And that starts your fire. So you can throw meat in here and you can cook it. You can cook a lot of other things. For example, you can cook the cattail roots. And that will take time. As you can see, it says the cooking temperature on everything. So the fire pit has to be at least that hot for it to start, and you can see the green bar moving. So once that's done, it will create a cooked cattail root, which is not very good food, but if you really need food, that's something you can do. When you're walking around the world, you may find peat, and this is what it looks like. It's very dark, like mud sort of looking texture. You can just dig this up with a shovel or your hands. I'm creative right now, so that didn't really work too well. But if you're in survival, for example, you can just punch that with your hands. It gives you a few peat blocks. I was just using a shovel. It's a lot quicker, and I think you get more with a shovel. Additionally, in the world, you may see these rifts. These will appear. These will spawn monsters out of them, so be careful. If you click C, you can see current rift activity. And as well in the world, you can find ruins, which isn't any around here, but you can also find traders. And you can talk to these guys. They have a bunch of dialogue options, and you can see what they sell. There's different kind of treasure hunters, of course, and the main currency of the game are called gears. You can get from either ruins, selling stuff to traders, or killing monsters. Now, firewood isn't the only fuel you can get. You can also get peat. Peat is very useful. It usually comes in big patches. But yeah, another thing is when we get to the next video, which will be copper, you'll find these copper bits. Just keep an eye out for those. You can just right click to pick them up. And in ruins, you may find things called cracked vessels. These are vessels that can be broken for items. So, for example, we got some spelt grain, food from that one. And additionally, you can find collapsed chest. There's a few different variants of this, but you open it, usually have some loot in there. And as soon as you take everything out of these chests, they will break on the ground. You can see chest rubble. Now, after you're settled on your first sort of things you need to do in the world, what's the next step? You got yourself a campfire maybe a little base with some wood and flint tools and all that. Well, you're going to use your extra clay. What do you do with this extra clay, you ask? You can crouch and right click and it'll bring up this menu. Similar to the flint knapping menu, you'll get a bunch of recipes. The most important things you want to make early on is a cooking pot and some bowls. Additionally, you're going to need some crucibles, some crocks, and we'll get all to that when we get to the Middle Age, but for now we're going to do bowls and cooking pots. We'll start with one cooking pot for now. There is a 4 option. You want to make 4 at a time. Now you can just, again, left click, get rid of it. Now it's going to add green squares. Green squares mean to add, so you can right click to add clay. Additionally, you can select tool mode. This will allow you to increase the size, for example. And then if you finish a layer of whatever you're sculpting with clay, and the next layer is exactly the same, like this, you can go to duplicate layer. Once you have duplicate layer, you can just hold right click and it will duplicate that layer just like it says. That saves a lot of time. Now if you get to a layer that's different, you can see it's going to start adding stuff you don't want. You will have to change it up every once in a while, doing that. That is a massive time saver. You can also just directly add onto the green squares. You don't need to create a supporting block on the side. So there's our clay cooking pot. You can see it's a raw red clay cooking pot. Now we can't use this, but you can see it says fires into 1 earthy orange ceramic cooking pot. Fires in a pit kiln. Well, how do you make a pit kiln? Making a pit kiln is very simple. We're going to grab one of these shovels. Just going to go somewhere that doesn't have any worries about fire spreading, but we're going to do it here on this grassy field for no reason. You're just going to put a block. Right? You're just going to dig a block down. Now you're going to take your raw red, whatever it is, whatever you're trying to put in the pit kiln, the raw red cooking pot for us. Now, the amount of items you can throw in a pit kiln vary, but most of the time it will be 4 for these kind of handheld ones. And another thing is you're going to want to put a block above, just in case it rains. If it rains while you're trying to fire this up, it will stop working. It'll be kaput. Now you're going to take your dry grass next. You're going to need quite a bit for each kiln. Luckily dry grass is pretty much everywhere at the start of the game. You could dry grass and you can crouch and right click. You're going to need about 10 dry grass to fill this up, and then it's going to ask you for sticks. And then after the sticks, it's going to ask you for some sort of burnable fuel. Firewood is the most common. Additionally, you can use peat and charcoal and other coal types. This is when peat comes very handy because firewood is very useful for a lot of other things, while peat is just a burnable. And additionally, firewood is the slowest that these pit kilns take. Then peat is quicker. And then additionally, charcoal is the quickest. However, charcoal is not very... I would suggest not using your charcoal for this. There's other uses you could use that for. So it takes about 4 peat. You just fill that up. And you can use your fire starter or a torch if you have one. There we go. When it's finally lit, all you have to do is wait. Once it's done cooking, you'll have yourself a usable cooking pot. That goes for pretty much everything that's made out of clay. So you're going to make a lot of these in the early game. So you have yourself a good set of clay tools of what sort. But that's literally all pit kilns are. They're very simple. Very simple. Additionally, a few other recipes you can make early game that are quite useful is you can take dry grass, some sticks, you can make extinguished torches. To light extinguished torches, you can just throw them in a campfire. Which, fortunately, we have our cooked cattail in there. So we can throw the torch in there and that will light the torch. You can take that out. Make sure you don't swim with the torches or in the rain. They'll go out and you'll have to relight them again. You can also use a fire starter on them on the ground. I suggest not doing this method. Oh, we just made a ton of torches. Okay, it's okay. But yeah, you can plate them on the ground. You can also light them like this. It's a lot easier once you have one torch. These things are much quicker than the fire starters, at least most of the time. But if you have a stack of torches, I suggest just putting them in a campfire and just waiting on them. Another thing is, you can click M to open the map. Your map might look different. We have the color accurate map enabled. So this shows us kind of colors of blocks and biomes around. When you're on the map, you have a few things as waypoints, own creatures, and terrain. Additionally, you can right click the map to add waypoints. You can pin them. And additionally, let's say you want to make a copper one. There is some shortcuts in here. So like a pickaxe with this color, orange color, will immediately go to copper. You can actually set your own. So let's say I want to do a red apple and want to do an apple tree. And we click save. And we click on apple, and we click on the red, it'll go to apple tree. This is what this suggest saved means. It'll save the suggestion that you put in for the color and the icon combo. That's just your way of getting around the world, of course. You can also click C. You can see your nutrition. The more nutrition you have, the more health you have. You can see your stats. You can see the environment. And all your equip slots, and you can see your traits for your class. We're the commoner, so we don't have any. Of course, you have your health bar, your hunger bar, and your temporal instability, which this thing will rotate, increase or decrease if the area you're in is unstable or stable. It can even sit still like this, which is a good sign. When you're underground, it will decrease, so you can have a limited time. When this gear gets low, like around maybe like the 40 to 30% range, you will start getting monsters to attack you. They'll just spawn out of thin air. So try to keep this in the high percentages as much as you can. Well, that's all I got for you guys in this video. We went over the early basics as well as clay and flint. In the next episode, we'll start getting into the Copper Age. So consider subscribing to watch out for more videos. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.